Hey everyone, welcome back. We're back again. So, I've been seeing a lot of people do GitLab pipelines, and I think a lot of people have issues with it. Um, Not necessarily using it, but more managing it. So, what I'm going to do in this video is show you how I like to manage my GitLab pipelines and how I organize them, break them apart, kind of make them modular, reusable. And what I have done is I made this project and I kind of started a little pipeline. I have a dev environment, a test environment. I have a release using tags kind of set up, but I just don't have the release job working just yet. I will keep this updated to show that working in the future. But how it works is when you're in a dev environment, you're going to have these different stages that run based off if you are not in the master branch. And if you're in the master branch, then you're going to run our test environment pipeline. And then the idea of it is at the end of it, you could have a manual job to create a tag release. And then that would trigger a release pipeline, and you could use GitOps to trigger something in a config repo, or you could build a prod version, release it out, however you want to do it. And let's get started. So the first thing I do is create this gitlab ci.yaml, and I kind of try to keep it how I do all my other coding projects. So I have all my imports up at the top, import, so you use include, and you can use this keyword local to determine that it's a local file. So to do all this and keep it organized, I'll create this .pipelines folder where I will put all of my pipeline configuration in. And we'll go over that in just a minute. Then you go over your stages. So these are like the different sections of your pipeline, and they're going to run in this order. So it's going to run in pre, deps, test, build, deploy, release. So it's always going to run jobs in that order. It's going to find all the jobs in pre, run all those jobs. Then it's going to go into deps, run all those, so forth. Default is where you can set the default configuration on your jobs. I set interruptible to true, and what that means is say I'm working on this dev branch and I push up a pipeline or push up a change and it triggers a pipeline. Well, that pipeline's going to be running, but say I made a mistake and I want to quickly push up another one. Instead of having to go cancel that pipeline, I can just push up my change and it'll interrupt that other one. And when it interrupts that pipeline, it'll cancel that and then start my new one. So kind of makes it nice. But if you do want your pipelines to just run, then I would say don't have it on. And the tag section is where you can configure it for your private runner. So I set up this local Docker Compose runner that's running right now that these jobs are going to run in. So you can use this. All you would do is when you register your runner, you're going to get a GitLab token. You'll paste it here. And you can quickly use this to set it up. It'll create this runner folder where it'll store the config, and then you can edit that to edit it how you like. So what you'll do though is you'll uncomment this, run it once, and then you'll comment it out, and then you can just run it and it'll work. But you have to run this register to bootstrap it with the token. Then let's get back to this runner file. So down here now is where I put all my global variables. I like to use this release version. This should match a Git tag. And another thing I do is I manage all my container image versions here. So if you have a couple jobs using the same container and then you have to update that image for whatever reason, I've definitely had to do it at work all the time. You don't want to have to go into every single pipeline job, or imagine you had a 1,000-line GitLab CI YAML file and you have to scroll through that, try to find all of them. Even if you use the Control F to find everything, it's still going to take you a long time. Or you could just go here, go to your Ubuntu image, and then update it to the right version. Done. So definitely a nice way of managing this. And then as a bonus, I have a little Snyk integration, so you can run a dependency scan on your code, and if it has a high or critical vulnerability, it'll fail. So we'll show you that. And so let's get into how I like to manage this. So first off, I like to create these templates. So we'll look at this Go one. So you can see I'm kind of creating a piece of a job. It looks just exactly like a GitLab pipeline job, but you add the hidden, you make it hidden by adding the period in front of it. And you can see I'm using my variable for the Go image. And then I can set the environment variables for the job. So like I want to configure how the package manager is running. With this one, I'm going to create a Go path. This is just a little trick so I can cache my dependencies and not have to re-download them every single time. And then I'm going to add like my Go bin to the path. And then I'm going to do a dependency install. And then down here on the Go build, you'll see it extends this Go deps. So what it means is it's going to merge this configuration on. So like what I could actually do since I'm using Go deps on these two is I could delete this Go image and it will inherit this value onto these jobs. And it'll also inherit this before script. But if this Go build had a before script, it would overwrite the script on here. So whatever, this one will always take precedence. So with this one, it's a little different because I'm going to be mainly using this one to extend to build all these off. So I can kind of just have a really easy Go build to use. So for example, I have my dev build. I can set it up just like that. And I'll show you more, but let's get back to this template. And let's see. So that's kind of how they work. So if I was going to use one that I would want to use elsewhere, I would only use the script section. And the reason I would do that is so when I do want to use this template, so we'll go back here, I could actually put in a before script and after script, and that could handle configuring something for that job to run. So whether that's moving a file, getting credentials, and then the after script's usually just for cleanup. And so let's go back here. So it's kind of the same thing I'm doing with this one is I'm not using a before script. These are only using script because if I was to use one, it wouldn't work right. So that's kind of how templates work. And a big way that I like to use these that if you don't want to do your jobs this way is for your pipeline config. So what's really cool is I can set an environment config here. And what it'll do is this all has to do with the GitLab pipelines environment. So it'll tag it and kind of manage the deployment of that environment. It's kind of cool. And this will tell it when it can run. So I want this dev config. If something extends this dev config, that means it's going to run when it's a feature branch, because if it's master, it won't run. And if it's a tag pipeline, it won't run. So this is kind of for our dev environment. Every time you make a feature branch based off of master, you'll be using this dev config in the pipeline and deploying to the correct place or building the right image with the right tags. So you can see I can kind of create my image scheme here. And I can do dev and the commit ref name. So then you kind of know, okay, it's the version of that. And if I wanted to take it even further, I could also add this release version as well. Boom. So now my dev images are going to get built like that if I do a Docker build. And I already have this variable set. And then you could also set account information, like say you're doing AWS. You could set that information here. And I also have the same thing for QA. So you can also do it a little different where I split the variables for QA into their own. And then my QA config extends those variables. And maybe in my release one, I want to still be in the test environment to do something. That's how you could do that. Same thing with prod. You could have like a preview that uses the variables or the actual one. But same thing, I'm just kind of setting up when I want it to run, variables for that environment, and I can kind of do some stuff based off the environment. So if I go into my pipelines now, so this is where I like to create an environments pipeline. So I'll go into .pipelines pipes, and I have this dev one for the dev environment. So I'm going to include that local template. And you can see in here, I extend my dev config onto all of these jobs. And just to have no clashing with job names, I always put the name of the pipeline environment first. So dev test, dev Snyk, dev build. You could have dev Docker build, dev Docker deploy, deploy to Fargate, whatever you're doing. This could be Terraform plan, Terraform apply, Terraform destroy. You can get very creative with it, but essentially you're just saying this is the pipeline for that environment. So if we look at our main GitLab, we can see we brought in our dev pipeline and those other two files. And then it's like, okay, well, what are these jobs? So what I do in the jobs, this is where I like to put things that are going to run in every pipeline. So for this one, this was for caching Go dependencies. So I'm going to run it in this dependency stage, and it extends that Go deps. So I bring in those templates, and then I can use, I actually don't think I really need to set these, but they're there. And I can run that, and it's just going to print out the Go version, make sure all the dependencies installed, and then I'm going to cache everything for 30 minutes. So that means all of the jobs that run after this will be able to download the dependencies for the app and work. Then I made another one just to show, since I made this Go project, and since I wanted to show you could use it for other languages just as easy, I made this script, and I kind of did it a different way. I used a shebang to run it. And I'm just going to print out some of the job information that are provided. And all this is going to do is use my node image and run that script. And this .pre is a special stage. It'll run at the very beginning of the pipeline. And then another one I have is a version check. So all this does is I set a GitLab token in my global project level CI vars. That just makes it available for all the projects. So I'm going to use that. And I have a little check. So you can also make these script templates, but these are only going to be available in this file. So I make this token check, and I can make this anchor tag and then reference it. And it's basically going to merge these lines in. So if the token doesn't exist, it's going to exit. And that's kind of something you want to do in your pipeline. You want to fail fast because you don't want to be waiting and waiting and waiting like 5-10 minutes and then like, oh, I forgot to set a variable. It's the worst. So what I like to do is fail fast, make sure my environment variables that are critical are checked. And if they're not, do an exit and the pipeline will terminate, and always have a message to let you know what's going on. I've noticed a lot of people have a hard time reading pipeline job logs for some reason. So that's what I like to do. Make sure you're checking your config and variables are where they should be. And then what this does is it just checks the GitLab API. And if a tag exists already for this release version, it'll fail. So then you'd have to come back to your feature branch, increment the release version. And that way you keep your tags kind of incrementing and you keep track of those. And let's see here. So I did want to show you guys something in this test. Something you can do too is expose your HTML reports in the merge request. And I'll show you exactly how that all works. So this is a simple way you can do it. I'm using this Go test report. And then I just pipe a JSON test into this test report tool. And then I basically copy it into this reports folder that I make. And I keep it as an artifact. And Snyk will also do the same thing. It will do a Snyk to HTML. And that happens on the test. And it'll just give you an HTML report of the dependencies. So what we're going to do is run this pipeline. So I have this utils folder. We should see these tests show up. And let's do that. So git add dot. So I'm going to push that up. And then since it's going to be using, we should have the dev pipeline get triggered because we're in the dev environment. So let's make sure. So let's make this bigger. And if I click here, those are our pre-jobs. So we look at pipeline info. It's going to run that JavaScript script. It's weird to say that. And so you can see it creates all these variables are going to be created for you by the GitLab runner. So you can use these in your jobs. All of them are going to be available. And then you can see it has a job ID. Here's the name of my project, my commit SHA. It was a push. So you can just see kind of some of the information. This read this package JSON, said what's in it. Kind of a dumb script. Let's check the version check. So release is okay because that tag didn't exist. And then now let's go to the dependencies. So we can check here. And there wasn't really anything for it to install. but it went ahead and just cached our whole Go path there. So now if we go to test, so it ran through, it downloaded that Go test report tool, and it ran it through and finished, and then we can see the artifacts right here on the right. So we can go into here with browse, hit reports, and then there's our test report. And we'll be able to see this report. We can see our test passed. So we can go back to our pipeline now. Then let's look at the Snyk job. So this one ran through, and it went through our Snyk filter. Oh yeah, so I do want to show you the Snyk filter I made. Basically, you just set this here, and it's going to test if it's, as long as it's low or medium, it'll pass. Anything else, it should fail in the pipeline. So this one looks like it passed, and we can also see what that report is going to look like. So we can go into this artifact. And then we have the Snyk scan. So no vulnerabilities. This one is good to go. So we can go back here. And then let's check our build. And it looks like it did a successful build. So let's check that artifact. And here's our app. You're not going to be able to see it because it's a binary blob. Now let's see what it's like if we go to our merge requests here. So let's merge dev into master. So, okay, so it's going to be ready to go, this pipeline pass. So let's go ahead and merge it. And you can see it exposed these two artifacts. So these are going to be quick links to those reports. So you could click on them. So those are going to be both available in the merge request, which is really cool because we did that expose as keyword. That means we'll have a link and you can directly look at it. So now, something I actually added special, and I wanted to show you guys, is in this test pipeline, we're going to do a multi-build. So what this is going to do is use the parallel matrix part of these GitLab jobs. And I can say, okay, I'm going to create these, I think it's 5 different instances, and these are going to be the environment variables that you use. So with this one, I actually need to change these for the app. So these would all be app. Just do bam. So this will build it for Linux. This will build it for ARM64. And this is also going to do Windows, Mac, and Mac ARM64. So I can build all of these all at once. And I think we should be there. So we can see how all of these jobs popped up. And like, for example, we can look at this one. We'll check out these artifacts. And it did it for ARM64. So you can see how you can kind of use GitLab pipelines to do all your stuff, but it's hard to keep organized if you don't have a good scheme of how you're going to do everything. So I've been managing the same pipeline. I think at work, I've been managing about 35 pipelines for like the last 2 years, the same pipelines. And this is kind of how I have honed down our pattern of how I like to manage the pipelines and keep it modular, scalable, make it easy to edit, because you will need to update image versions. Definitely don't use latest. You are going to need to do this. And I think if you kind of follow this pattern, it'll really help you guys have stable pipelines and make them easier to work on and support in the future. So I had a lot of fun making this video. I really do enjoy GitLab pipelines. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to hop in my Discord. I have a link in my bio. You can ask me questions. Feel free to comment, like, and if you have any questions, and remember to like and subscribe. And let me know what you guys want to see in the future. If you'd like me to do more pipeline stuff and automation, give me a language and we can try to do it, get it solved. Yeah, let me know. I would love to hear what you guys are doing with GitLab pipelines in your home lab or at work. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more. Thanks, everyone. Bye.